let's transition and let's go to Philadelphia as we have an NFC Championship rematch set for Sunday afternoon. It's the San Francisco 49ers who are favored by 3 points, traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a 4:25 p.m. kickoff. The over-under for this matchup is 46.5. So, big-time matchup in the NFC. So, as I look at this matchup between these two teams, first and foremost, I am surprised that Vegas has the 49ers favored to win this football game. You look at the line right now, the 49ers are favored by 3 points. So, essentially, Vegas is basically saying that the 49ers are really favored by 6 points because when you're at home, usually the home team in matchups where there's two evenly matched football teams, usually Vegas gives the home team 3 points. So by them favoring the 49ers by 3 points as a road underdog, that's Vegas basically saying that they believe the 49ers are 6 points better than the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think that's crazy. The 49ers are 8-3. They've played well since their bye week. They're on a 3-game winning streak. They beat the Jaguars in week 10, 34-3. They beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 11, 27-14. And they blew out the Seattle Seahawks on Thanksgiving in week 12, 31-13. But they're 8-3. And even though they lead the NFC West, there's been times this year, especially during their 3-game losing streak, week 6 through 8, where the 49ers didn't look very good. And Brock Purdy was struggling. Now, Deebo Samuel was also injured, and he was out. Trent Williams was also injured and out. Christian McCaffrey wasn't 100% week 6 through about week 6, I would say it's week 6 through 10. Christian McCaffrey was not 100%. He wasn't. So I understand that the 49ers were dealing with injuries, but I witnessed Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings throw a party against that 49ers defense week 7 on a Monday night in Minnesota. Vikings beat the 49ers 22-17. And then I also witnessed Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals dominate the 49ers. This was a Sunday afternoon in San Francisco. Joe Burrow had arguably his best performance of the season as the Bengals beat the 49ers 31-17. And the 49ers are a great team who could potentially win the Super Bowl. But I don't feel like they should be favored in this matchup. I look at the Philadelphia Eagles, they are 10-1, and their only loss came against the New York Jets, and that was in week 6, and they could have potentially won that game as well. But I think Vegas is looking at style points and looking at how these two teams have won football games. Like over the last few weeks, you look at the Eagles. In week 9, they beat the Cowboys 28-23, but it was a nail-biter. It was a close game in the fourth quarter, a game the Cowboys potentially could have won. And then you look at week 11, Monday night, came into the matchup as the game of the year. Eagles versus Patrick Mahomes on ESPN. Eagles didn't even play their best football, but they still beat the Chiefs 21-17. And then last week, in the first half, the Bills dominated the Eagles. The Bills were up 17-7 over the Eagles at halftime, and they looked like for the first 3 quarters that they were the better football team. So I think Vegas is basing their, how they look at this game and the line in this matchup, they're basing their judgment on the line on how the 49ers and the Eagles have played over the last few weeks. 49ers, they blew out the Jaguars, they blew out the Buccaneers and the Seahawks, and the Eagles struggled with the Cowboys, Chiefs, and Bills. So I think that's why they have the 49ers favored in this matchup. But when I look at this matchup, I'm so excited for this game. I will be on my couch, relaxing, chilling Sunday afternoon, waiting for 4:25 p.m. Waiting. Because when you look at these two football teams, obviously last year they played in the NFC Championship game, and it was a matchup that we were all excited about. And we all was like, man, this is going to be a great game. Two great football teams. And not even a whole quarter into the matchup, Brock Purdy got injured. And then the 49ers backup quarterback, Josh Johnson, also got injured. It got to a point to where Christian McCaffrey had to take snaps last year in the NFC Championship game. So the 49ers didn't have a quarterback. So also, last year the 49ers, they lost 4 quarterbacks throughout the season. They lost Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and then Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson. I don't ever remember that happening to a Super Bowl contender in my lifetime, ever. They lost 4 quarterbacks last year, 4 of them. So when you talk to 49ers players and coaches during the offseason and after the NFC Championship game, they felt like if they had a quarterback, they would have beaten the Eagles in the NFC Championship game last year. They feel that way. And they feel like the Eagles lucked up en route to get to the Super Bowl. But if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you can only play who's on your schedule. You can only play who's on your schedule. And I heard from multiple people last year how they felt like the Eagles had an easy schedule last year. And you look at their path, to even get to the Super Bowl, they beat the Giants in the divisional round, and then they beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. But I thought they played well against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So to me, that validated them being a legitimate Super Bowl contender, how they performed in the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. The Eagles could have won that Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts played spectacular. Besides that fumble in the Super Bowl, he had a tremendous performance. So I understand where the 49ers players are coming from, feeling like the Eagles lucked up in the NFC Championship game and how if they had a quarterback, they would have won the NFC Championship. But I also understand the Eagles' perspective that we did what we were supposed to do. And you can't take away from the fact that the Eagles had a 14-3 record throughout the regular season. They were the number 1 seed in the NFC. And Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate last year. He could have won NFL MVP had he not got injured. So I understand both teams' arguments as to why they feel like they are the best team in the NFC. Now, you look at the 49ers. Obviously, they are led by Brock Purdy. And so far this season, Brock Purdy, 19 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 2,871 passing yards. He's completing 70% of his passes. He's been playing good football since the bye week in I believe it was week 9 for the 49ers. They had a bye week in week 9. He's been playing some good football. Against the Jaguars, Purdy goes 19 of 26, 296 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Against the Buccaneers, Brock Purdy, he goes 21 of 25, very, very efficient, 333 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And then last week against the Seahawks on Thanksgiving, Brock Purdy, 21 of 30, 209 passing yards, 1 touchdown. He did have 1 interception, but he's played well since the bye week for the 49ers. But as I always say, when the 49ers have everything rolling and they have all of their players healthy, Brock Purdy can play at a high level at quarterback. He's not elite. I wouldn't say it's an elite level, but it's at a high level when the players on the 49ers offensively are healthy. I'm talking about Deebo Samuel. I'm talking about Trent Williams. I'm talking about Christian McCaffrey. When they're all healthy, Brock Purdy can play and give you the perception like he's an elite quarterback, even though he's not. I want to be very, very clear about this. Brock Purdy is not an elite quarterback. He's an average quarterback who sometimes plays good and performs at a very, very high level, and you may think that he's elite, but he's not elite. So when they have all of their players healthy, the 49ers can beat anyone. And typically the 49ers either blow you out or they sometimes get blown out themselves. There's no in between. You look at the 49ers this year, they blew out the Steelers in week 1, 30-7. Blew out the Giants in week 3, 30-12. Blew out the Cardinals 35-16 in week 4. Obviously, week 5, they blew out the Cowboys 42-10. So they can embarrass you, or you can beat them and make them look bad. Now, when I look at the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously the Philadelphia Eagles are led by Jalen Hurts. So far this season, statistically, Jalen Hurts hasn't been great. 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 2,697 passing yards. He's completing 68% of his passes. But when I look at Jalen Hurts, he hasn't performed very well in the first half of football games. But in the second half, Jalen Hurts has balled out for the Philadelphia Eagles. He has balled out. I watched that game last week when they went up against the Buffalo Bills. And I'm going to just read some stats. This is the Bills-Eagles game last week. The Bills had more yards than the Philadelphia Eagles. The Bills had more passing yards than the Eagles. The Bills had more third down conversions than the Eagles. The Eagles had more giveaways than the Bills. The Bills dominated time of possession as well. But you know what the difference in the game was? Jalen Hurts performing at a high level in the second half. In the second half, he was balling, making play after play after play. This is Jalen Hurts when trailing in the second half or overtime this season. 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's completing 67% of his passes, passer rating of 138.6. Jalen Hurts has elevated his game to where he's a very, very clutch quarterback. And I thought last year when I looked at the Philadelphia Eagles, even though Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate last year, I thought last year the Philadelphia Eagles were a football team that I looked at them as a great football team with a good quarterback. This year, it's the exact opposite. I think the Philadelphia Eagles have a great quarterback who's playing for a good football team. This Eagles team, especially defensively, they struggle. I look at their numbers defensively this year. The Eagles, they give up 361 total yards per game. That's ranked 21st in the NFL. They give up 256 passing yards per game. That's ranked 29th in the NFL. They give up 22 points per game. That's ranked 20th in the NFL. And teams are able to convert on 46% of their third downs. That's ranked 30th in the NFL. So defensively, they're struggling. The teams can really move the football and put up some points against this Eagles defense. And overall, as a football team, to me, they were better last year than what they have been so far this year. But Jalen Hurts has elevated his game, and he's playing at a high level, especially when it matters the most. And I don't even think he's 100% right now. I really, really don't. But this is going to be a great football game. Obviously, the Eagles, they got great weapons like A.J. Brown, like Devontae Smith. I thought last week Devontae Smith had a great performance against the Bills. It wasn't really A.J. Brown. It was more so Devontae Smith. Last week, Devontae Smith, 7 receptions, 106 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. A.J. Brown only had 5 for 37 receiving yards. But it's going to be an interesting football game. These two football teams are two of the most complete football teams in the NFL. But with all that being said, I know I made a case for why the Eagles should be favored going into this football game. That doesn't mean I believe they're going to win this game. Coming into the season, I picked the Eagles to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl this year. I still believe the Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in the NFC. But they ain't going to be the best team playing on Sunday at Lincoln Financial Field. I'm rolling with the San Francisco 49ers to beat the Philadelphia Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field. I'm going 49ers 24, Eagles 21.